Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Welcome back to Magic in the Cloud, the show where we explore the brilliance that happens when innovation, resilience, and real human stories collide. Today we're joined by a woman who's not only changing how fleet accidents are reported, but she's also changing how we think about grit and reinvention. She started out in the bridal industry, which I'm quite familiar with, surrounded by sparkle and lace, and somehow wound up managing hundreds of vans, trucks, and taxis. She's the founder of Oh No, a disruptive SaaS platform that's taking the pain out of post-accident reporting for fleets around the globe. From 44 vehicles to 500, from the UK to the US, from bridal rails to digital dashboards. Your story's anything but ordinary. And yes, we're going to talk about 60 seconds on a camel. With that, everybody, meet my guest, Renee Rogers. Renee, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
What a brilliant introduction. I love that. I feel like I sound great on paper.
Yeah, so it's not just how you feel, it's how you look and how you're introduced.
Absolutely. I'm going to record that and just play that every time I walk into a room.
Yeah. So as much as we're going to get to the camel discussion, the format of the podcast is to talk a little bit of business shop first and then kind of transition over to that. So audience, stay calm here about the camel experience. But I want to take people like straight into the action. So audience, picture this. You've gotten a call from one of your fleet drivers that's had an accident. And what's the first thing that happens now? And then how is that completely different, say, from 5 years ago?
So the usual procedure at the moment for fleet operators is the driver will phone a number, be on hold for an hour, or even worse, they're given a bump card, which is a small piece of paper with a pen that you're trying to scramble to find, and then fill out all that information at the roadside manually to then take that little tiny scrap and send it to your fleet manager later on after you've done your deliveries or dealt with all your passengers. And it's just a complete mismatch of manual, handwritten, and missing information. And that's current. It's been the same for years.
Oh, so this still goes on in the majority of fleets around the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're finding there is some better processes in place, obviously thanks to systems such as Oh No. But ultimately, drivers are just very unprotected at the roadside. They're taught, they're given a great onboarding session when they come on board to a fleet. They're told what to do then, but they may not have an accident for 6 months or a year. And by then you forget everything that was told to you.
And I think if I'm picturing myself being in that situation, there's a little bit of panic or fight or flight that might occur. And so whatever training I might be able to recall might be masked or pushed down through some of my anxiety during the accident.
Yeah, absolutely. It's chemically proven that during this situation, an acute stressful situation, your brain decreases by 20% capacity. Mm-hmm. And the best drivers who deal with an incident are black taxi drivers because they've really trained their hippocampus, the part of the brain. And I'm not a science girl at all.
Sure.
It's just interesting to me.
Sure.
And that reduction in 20% of brain capacity that's what triggers your fight or flight mode. And that's why we get so many hit and runs or aggressive behavior at the roadside.
Oh, So not that it isn't your responsibility, but oftentimes it's a trigger that just, I'm sure a lot of people have said, I don't even realize that I left, that I
Yeah,
took off.
absolutely.
And then it also reminds me of what I've learned about people in emergency rooms and hospitals. There are people who have to super train their, what was that brain, part of your brain that you mentioned?
Hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
Hippoca-
They have
hippoca-
to train the hippocampus to stay off until the emergency occurs, turn it on, and then turn it off. Because you can't have that active for your 8-hour shift in an emergency room. Your body just can't handle that.
Yeah.
So
And it's well trained. It's just a part of the brain that taxi drivers in particular really have it trained due to the knowledge.
Yeah. So now what happens is they get in an accident. If they remember one thing, they remember to open up your product on their phone or some other mobile device, and then take me through what happens there.
So we've got quite a punchy name, which is Oh No. So we would hope during that absolutely stressful instant moment, they think, oh no, or potentially something stronger, no doubt. And that then triggers them to open the app, because all they need to remember is open Oh No, because everything else relaxes them. We actually had a driver recently who had their second incident, and they'd already used Oh No previously. And I phoned him to say, how are you? Everything okay? And he said, Renee, I felt the car hit me from behind. And for the first time in my driving career, I didn't even stress, because I just knew I could get out of that car, open Oh No. And I actually thought, I've got this. No problem. Don't worry, everyone. I know what to do. And that for me is exactly why we built Oh No.
That's awesome, because we're starting with think about the human benefit to mitigating that stress and anxiety. Right? If that's all you accomplished, that's
Brilliant.
great. And not that this next question is going to be boring answers, but on the back end, what are the 2 or 3 things that are benefiting the company managing the fleet? Are you finding a way to impact insurance premiums? Don't know. You're getting better data on where and how accidents occur. Or are you finding there's a lot of time saved, right? Because you're not having to track down all the folks involved in the accident, but you're putting resources saying, call the shop, call the police, call the person that was involved in the accident. What are some of the benefits on the back end that make it a worthwhile investment for clients?
Well, all of those that you've just said.
There you go.
Absolutely
There you go.
spot on.
I should be
Return
selling
of
for you.
investment points. Yeah, honestly. I should get you on my demos. First of all, speed is so crucial. So the fact that fleet managers have this information quickly and can share that with who needs to know quickly saves so much time. On a fleet of around, let's say 500 vehicles, we're saving the admin, like the administrator, around 10 hours a week.
Wow.
That's one lady or gentleman, 10 hours of just dealing with the manual processes of dealing with an incident. Then we're looking at around 2 hours downtime saved per driver. So even if you're having 50 incidents a year, which is very small, that's 100 hours of vehicle downtime that we're saving. And we're doing exactly that in regards to the reporting of incidents. Where are they? What are the locations? What's the time, the dates, the weather conditions? So that ultimately we say, we want to be the app that nobody uses. We don't want people to have incidents. So we're giving them the data to say, on a Thursday at 3:00 in this location, your drivers are struggling. They're having bumps. Let's work out why. And just try and mitigate all the loss. And by really looking after your fleet and your drivers, believe me, the insurers love that, because you're mitigating your risk as a fleet.
Yeah, I love it. I think if I'm a COO, that to me is a no-brainer from a operating downtime, right? That's a no-brainer. And then now you're telling me the insurance company's going to like it, and arguably, we know insurance is, I don't know how it is in the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but here in the U.S., we do struggle with how insurance companies translate all that data to cost savings. But at the end of the day, people still want safer roadways and less accidents, and that's really cool. So there's a lot of pieces in between, but you're in the bridal retail industry. Let's go back there. And
Oh,
all of
I
a sudden
love
you
those
move into
days.
transport and logistics.
Yeah.
How'd that
I
happen? How'd that happen?
so if I start right at the beginning, when I first ever got my first job, it was selling double glazing windows.
Mm.
And I was 16, fresh out of school, and I wanted to earn money straight away. And every day to walk to that office, to be on the phone solidly trying to get leads for 4 hours, I had to walk past a bridal shop.
Okay.
And I did that for 2 years. And every time I would look and I'd go, oh, I'd love to deal with dresses and I'd love to deal with all the pretty sparkle. And one day I just knocked and went in and said, do you have any jobs? I said, funny enough, they're interviewing tomorrow for a Kodak girl, the photographers.
Really?
And yeah, and I interviewed and I got the job. And I had to stand in the bridal shop every Saturday and ask brides, do they need a photographer? And just to get a lead. So obviously I'm impatient. I can't just stand in the corner of a bridal shop without trying them on, putting the tiaras on, helping brides. And I just got stuck in. And before long, I ended up becoming the manager of that bridal shop and menswear, and then creating my own wedding industry company where I would go around the country and train girls how to sell. I don't know who I thought I was at 20 odd years old.
Wow, that's incredible. So you were training people how to get into the head of the bride and groom
Absolutely.
relative to, I have the DJ business and I do a lot of weddings. So sometimes I forget all the behind the scenes, but so this is everything from attire to photographer, to all their entertainment, all the things, like a wedding planner type.
So it was predominantly dresses, because the
Okay.
Kodak girl was within the
Oh,
bridal
okay, so we
shop.
had the
And then
attire surrounded by the photographer.
by this photographer
Okay.
arm. And then
Yep.
Kodak, they pulled out all of their girls from the shops because digital came into play.
Right.
And the shop said, we don't want to lose you, we'll employ you. So then they employed me directly. And you just become a confidant. Looking for a bridal dress is one of the first things, bar the engagement ring, that women do, or they go to their venue. So we would be in a really early stage. And if you can imagine a bride turning up with 4 bridesmaids, a mum, a mother of the bride, a nan, maybe a brother, and you're faced with having to sell that dress not to one person, you have to very quickly navigate the situation, pick up on who is the person you're needing to sell this to, sometimes the mum, and really try to navigate that situation carefully. And that was fun. But until you actually understand that and it gets broken down, it's very easy to just storm ahead and try and sell a dress to a bride.
That's incredible. And from my perspective, 40 years and maybe 400 weddings, I get them a little bit later down the food chain. So by the time I get them, I usually just have the bride until the wedding.
Right.
And that's when the mom and the grandmother and the bridesmaids all come back in with their 2 cents. Even though we've been planning this for a year, now they've got their 2 cents. So yeah, great skill set in the old, how to get into the headspace of the bride and then deal with many other points of view from trusted people who they love who get on their nerves a lot.
Absolutely. You have to read it. It's very emotional. And
Very emotional.
yeah, and I was able to navigate that situation. The men were much easier.
And so how'd you go from there to transport, logistics, and cars, which we'll talk about in a second, which is like a male-dominated space. But first of all, how'd you get there? And then we'll talk about how the male side of all this supported you.
So I originally lived in Kent, which is a place south of London, and you could buy a cup of tea for around $2. And that was great. Cheap, rent was cheap, bills were cheap. I then opened my consultancy business, traveling around the country to sell to other bridal shops, and moved to London and realized suddenly a cup of tea was $4 instead of $2. I thought, okay, London's expensive. I need to get a part-time job just to cover some outgoings.
Okay.
And there was a part-time job for a fleet admin lady. They just said 2 days a week, come on in. I thought, yeah, I'll give this a go. Turned up, said to them, I've never worked in cars before, but I know I can do this. Let me give it a go. They hired me on the spot, and I turned up a week later, faced with a desk full of parking tickets and logbooks, and told, off you go. And I loved it. I absolutely loved that boisterous, male-filled industry where you can get things done. I really enjoyed it straight away.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that your natural curiosity, which you talked about in your earlier part of your career, got the better of you. And for you, it was way more than accurate logs and getting tickets paid. It was more about why so many tickets? Why are these certain drivers getting the tickets and these others are not? At what time of day they're getting tickets? And then I'm guessing an accident or two showed up on your radar and you had to manage that. You were aware of the admin time, all the issues you mentioned earlier. The drivers gave you 1/3 of the information you needed, which put them at risk, that put you at risk, etc. And so I could see how
Exactly that.
yeah.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
just built. Within 6 months, I doubled the fleet. And then over the 9 years, built that up to 500 vehicles.
Wow.
So, and with that, you just face things. Every day is different, but the same. And that's a really weird concept, that you're just getting through every day, but it's very slightly different. There's no easy day in fleet running. There's fun. Boy, is there some fun days, but it's constant and it's manic.
And so now you're in the fleet, you're running the fleet, there are 500 vehicles. And then talk to me about the jump from that to being the CEO owner of a software company. Walk me through that magical change.
I'd love to say I just woke up one day, had this great idea and found a pot of money to help support that dream. Absolutely not. As the business was building, there was more and more accidents that were happening. And I had almost solved every issue in the business with a process. And the accidents I really struggled with. I didn't really have much insurance knowledge, only what I'd learned on the job. And I thought there must be something out there that can help assist my drivers who were predominantly non-English speaking. English wasn't their first language, so they struggled, and I needed that data to come through to me. So I was searching for about 3 to 6 months for a product that could do this job. There was nothing on the market. So you say, well, if it's not there, I'll build it. And ended up leaving the fleet after 10 years and saying, well, I'm gonna go. COVID had hit. That was a very tricky time for us as a fleet because of journeys in London just completely went off the cliff. So we did manage to get through COVID, start to build the fleet back up. And I just thought, now's my time to move on and actually build this software company. I had a little bit of money behind me from saving during COVID. And I was able to go, let's do it. Let's open a tech company.
And I wanted to comment on thanks for your honesty about your vision and how you went about making the decision. I think the audience, most people think that some of the best ideas, or a lot of the best ideas, come from people who are just super visionary, super smart. Not that you're not visionary, not that you're not smart, but it just came to you based upon a big problem you had. And you and I may have talked about this before, but I always flash back to Barney, that purple dinosaur, which from what I understand, is that dinosaur was a mom with a bunch of kids who sat him down one day, tired of cleaning up the toys every day, and said, what do you like about this toy? It's purple. What do you like about this toy? it speaks, it sings. And she took the attributes of all the toys that were constantly a mess and driving her crazy, put them into one purple singing dinosaur, and thus Barney was born.
I
So
love
call it a
that.
vision or call it solving the biggest problem right in front of you. And you just didn't see one in the market.
No, I didn't. It would have been so much easier. It would have cost me probably £500 a month. And I could have just lived my life normally using someone else's software, but there wasn't it in the market. So I've gone, I need to build this.
That's awesome. So right now, I know you're on top of your competitive analysis, but right now you don't see a lot of full featured competitors like you were, like you. So that being said, knowing that people are going to be coming after you, what do you think the next 3 years look like in fleet accident management?
I think the good thing is we have lots of great technology out there that we collaborate with. So we've chosen a really grimy area that people just tend to brush over or they don't understand needs digitalizing. So they're working on all the other lovely bits around it. So we've taken a section and we've actually found the people that would have initially thought that we were competitors have become fantastic allies and collaborators.
That's
with
awesome.
us,
That's
which
awesome.
has been brilliant. And it makes us a stronger proposition. And what that does is it shows that the market is ready to be digital. Drivers have a lot more focus on their phones and the usage of their mobile phones for uploading documents and for using it to check in with the fleet operators. Fleet operators understand the absolute necessity of having a high level overview of the data that's coming in. Spreadsheets do not cut it.
Right.
And also a lot of fleets and drivers are much more in tune with the fact that they are responsible for their data and they need to keep a close eye on it. It's no good just sending that over, that piece of paper, that phone call to an insurer without knowing what you actually said and what you sent. So we're finding there's a real lovely push towards digitalization and actually a high level overview of that data in its entirety.
And that's awesome. And what about things like tying into their cameras? And I'm just thinking out loud about something cool. How does the car know that it's been in an accident? I know we're putting this on the human, right? There's a human experience there. But if the car knew it was in an accident, the car could take the data it's been collecting, from video and other information, GPS information, and even trigger that accident report. Hey, the car's been in an accident. Now let me go up against that human and see if he or she has got the same information I have.
Exactly that. And we look at it like when you're doing your invoicing and you need the receipt to match the money going out of your bank account. And we say all that lovely evidence and that tech to support, such as the tracking, such as the dash cam information or the footage, links so well with Ono. And we are in development mode, innovation mode, where we're looking at like geofencing, where the locations are happening, and G-force. So it can actually then ping up if there is a G-force that's felt within the vehicle, that can ping to the Ono app and it can just guide and say, was that an incident or was it a speed bump that you've gone over a little bit hard?
Yeah.
Do you need to open Ono and report an incident?
Which I think in the US is why I won't put one of those insurance company modules in my car, because my perception is it's one thing to help me with my accidents, another thing to say, Joe, you went over that speed bump a little fast. We're going to add another $2 per month to your premium.
Exactly.
That feels a little bit invasive to me.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that on the accident mitigation process, all that stuff is really vital.
It is, but also we are so focused on the driver and the fleet operator. And when I was running my fleet, not everything went through to the insurance. I really tried to deal with as much as I could internally to help my premium stay at a good rate. So I would try and interject and have intervention from the off. And when we say so for example, for you, Joe, you could have the app, you could still report that incident It's within your app, and then you decide when you want to share that and who you want to share it with. You are in control of that data. And that's a real core value of ours, that the data's back in the driver and the fleet owner's hands.
I love it. I love it. Two other questions about business, and then we'll switch over to the personal and the ride on the camel. So there's a lot of dudes in the industry. And I know one of the things I respect about you is that you dove head first into that. But talk to me about what people might think, like my audience might think would be the backlash and the lack of acceptance, which we would perceive, and how that's actually not true. What happened when all these dudes met a young lady who wanted to get into the market?
So one of the first times I picked up the phone call, this was not Oh No, this was the previous business, and I had to ring a fleet manager. And the first thing he said was, get your boss to call me back.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And I hadn't dealt with that because I'd been in weddings. It was great. It was champagne for breakfast. I was like,
Sure. Yeah.
boss, it's me. Like, I'm just the one around. So I phoned him back up and I said that. And I said, look, nothing's going to get done if you don't actually deal with me right now.
Yeah.
That relationship became one of the best relationships I had in the industry. And I realized very quickly, Renee, be you, be bolshy, still be honest and open and forthright. And honestly, Joe, the support I have had from the men in the taxi industry and in the industries all over for fleet have been absolutely fantastic. They've really helped me. The advice, the assistance, the mentoring, I've embraced all of it because I never look at it as condescending. I never look at it as mansplaining. I genuinely have a love and support from people, and I'm so grateful for that. And I actually embrace it. I want to know. And these guys have got to great positions because they're doing a good job. I want to learn from that. And I've been really lucky now to start infiltrating some more of the females in fleet as well. There's only 26% of women in the fleet industry in the UK. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been able to find those focal points as well and those tribes. And we have a lot of the same opinions. We're grateful for the support. There's been hard times, don't get me wrong, and some have faced a lot more adversity than I have. I've been particularly lucky with the group of people I've surrounded myself with.
I love your approach. Here in the U.S., we have my last question's around about how you're coming to the U.S. But here in the U.S., when it comes to I'll transition from the guy-girl thing. Here in the U.S., we've spent a lot of time until recently trying to play things, the whole woke culture and all that, and trying to play things down the middle. And what I think that takes away from innovation, creativity, and all that. I think some of those differences, and you mentioned there were sometimes a guy's going to judge you and assume you can't be the boss. Those things happen, right? And
women judge me.
Yeah. So when people misjudge, it's not always with some type of malice intent, right? Sometimes
Correct.
It's just a micro prejudice that's stuck back there. And, what I always say is get over that, because typically behind that is still somebody who wants to be successful, wakes up in the morning looking to do the right thing, tries to act with integrity. And if they're smart, they forgive themselves before they go to bed and then start over fresh the next day. Although I contend that's one of the hardest things to do.
No, I completely agree.
I was so terrible. Man, I read a book called The Four Agreements, and that was one of the umpteenth self-help books I had. And the first three agreements were like, yeah, do what you say you're going to do, whatever. I almost didn't make it to the fourth one. The fourth one was start over fresh the next day. I'm like, hallelujah. I'm not in the hole. That was so powerful. That's a discussion for another day on
I love that.
How to define being present and resetting it to zero. So last business question, which is, so you're wildly successful over in the UK and Europe and all that, but certainly there's some money in the US. Tell us about your plans to expand into the U.S. And if I've got people here in the U.S. that are watching and they can help you, talk to me about how you're getting your message out here, what your approach is to the American fleet industry.
So I've tiptoed over to the US. I have a couple of beta test fleets that are trialing it at the moment, going very well. And for us, it's been a case of making sure that the terminology is right and that we're appealing to the American driver. And we've had no issues with that. And the same with the insurance companies. We've realized that the information that we're producing is actually extremely similar, if not identical, to the information in the UK. And we did work hard to make sure that we were matching that. The thing that I'm most grateful about is having this transition to America is the support that I'm getting again. And people have seen this. There's a great guy, Greg from the RTS. He's supported me hugely.
Right. Yeah, Greg was on the show a little while ago. Yep.
Yeah. And just those kind of relationships where they're showing me the differences and actually helping me with data. And I'm grateful for that. I couldn't build out some of the nuances of Ono without that information. So if there are any fleets out there that would like to trial the product and help me build it and innovate for that particular market, please contact me because I'm very open. We're ready to go for that.
That's great. I'll make sure at the end of our discussion, I'll capture your contact info. And one last comment there as we transition to the personal side of Renee. The only thing that I remember, and I did some work in the UK, but my one anecdotal experience about the difference between the UK and the US is you have to determine if your market is birds of a feather or not. So my use case was the folks in the UK did some really amazing things with computers in cars for law enforcement to track people across different districts and what's the right word? Jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And so in the UK, if you say that London's using it, then Reading wants it. If you say Reading's using it, they all follow each other. But here in the US, if you go to New York and say Philadelphia's using it, they'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. So in the US, we have this tendency to think that we want to be the leader. And so not saying it exists in fleet management, but I would always want to know if referenceable or testimonials based upon referenceability in certain jurisdictions. If the guy from Ford's using it, or this hospital is using it, will the other hospital use it? So it'd be interesting to see if they flock to that birds of a feather concept.
That's really good advice. Actually, really good, because I've been dealing with a lot of the regulators in the different states, the transport regulators, because I want to make sure it's compliant as a product. So yeah, that's really good advice. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in general, like Philly doesn't like Boston and New York City, but we'll deal with Washington, D.C., right? So
I love
if ever I would tell somebody about a reference, if I can get something from down south, that usually goes well. But if you tell them we did it in Boston, New York, like, yeah, I don't want to follow that.
I'll stick with fleet names. I'll say they're using it rather than locations.
Yeah. So let's talk about you a little bit. I got 3, 4, 5 questions for you, but in our conversations leading up to this, I heard you went to Egypt, and please share the highlights of Egypt. Make sure you cover 60 seconds on the camel.
So I've never been to Egypt before, and it's just one of those places that looks magical, absolutely magical. And the history side really appeals to me. And I decided, we went to Sharm, so very touristy area. I generally thought I would just lie by the pool for the whole week and burn to a crisp. That was my plan of action. The odd email, the odd check-in with the team, but ultimately I didn't want to do anything. And then the moment you arrive, I thought, I need to go see the pyramids. I can't go to Egypt without seeing Tutankhamun and seeing the Sphinx and the pyramids. So did the day trip bright and early, left at around 5:30, flight to Cairo. And it just so happened to be on a Friday. Now, every Friday, I do a 60-second update where I just tell everybody in 60 seconds what I've been up to that week. and it keeps me on track.
Nice.
So much goes on when you're building a
And
business.
where do you post that? LinkedIn,
Yeah,
Instagram,
LinkedIn,
YouTube?
TikTok,
Yeah. Oh,
Instagram.
cool. Okay.
And I just thought, I'm on a camel. I'm in front of the pyramids. I need to do
Nice.
my 60 seconds. So
Yeah.
quickly whipped out my phone, recorded my 60-second update, and it was perfect. It was probably one of my favorite moments of doing that, where you can see the pyramid really close to me, the camel, the movement of that, the heat. And yeah, it was such a lovely moment. Those 60 seconds on a camel was brilliant.
I love it. That sounds like another theme for a podcast.
60 seconds on a camel.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about challenges a little bit. One of the things I know about you is you're a very frank and open person. So let's talk about doubt. Let's talk about a time where you you suffered maybe a lack of confidence, you had doubt, and in how you pushed through all that.
It's a weird one because I can honestly sit here and say I don't doubt myself. I make decisions. I make considered decisions. And even if I make a gut decision and it doesn't quite turn out how I thought, I'm more than capable of saying, do you know what? That's the outcome. Let's go again. Let's try that again. And it's that case of, you said earlier about waking up. Wake up the next day and go again. And when you realize that, yeah, we're going to have bad days, we're going to have emotional days, things aren't going to work out quite how we expected, go to bed, wake up the next day, start afresh, and you go get them again. And I really maintain that emotion is emotion and it's there for a very short time. And I embrace it, allow it, and then move on. It can be quite cold for some people, but I'm like, no.
I think they can. And that's you and I talked about doing some other side conversations, right? But the whole idea of how to be present.
Yeah.
Two things come to mind for me. One is I subjectively every day measure how present was I, and I define that by the following, which is at the end of the day that I spend 5% of my time thinking about the past, and then moving on. And the way that I put a governor on that is I think about what happened. I identify a problem or a mistake or whatever, lack of self-confidence. I go right to the place where my inside voice says, you stink, right? And right there I stop and go, that's enough. I'll go back to what did I learn and move forward. And then I spend 15% of my day or 10% of my day daydreaming, right? But I really gauge it by saying, did I sincerely spend about 5% of my day, like I was able to do it and then move forward? If I could do that, then that mitigates self-doubt a big time. Because I think for a lot of people who think about how do I, from a mental health perspective, how do I condition my, what was that big word again?
Hippocampus.
Hippocampus.
Yeah.
How do I condition my hippocampus, which is probably the same area of the brain, to be like, yo, you can go over this far, but now we need to stop and then take all that and move forward.
Absolutely.
I think it's a similar thing. So that said, you're telling me you were born like that? Or how did you work on it? And I guess what I'm getting at is anybody in your life that was a mentor or a significant influence, either in that space or even just in your career?
I think when I was, something that has probably definitely has shaped the way I am is when I was 2, I had cancer. So just under 2, and I lost my eye. Yeah. And
Wait, you said you lost what?
My eye.
Really?
Yeah. So I've got a glass right eye. And I was a baby. So there was absolutely, I didn't know about it. No clue. No idea. My mum probably took the brunt of the emotion of dealing with that as a parent and a child that was a tumour on her eye, about to die, and literally removed the eye to save the life. So I suppose I've just always thought, Renee, you are really lucky to be alive. So do you know what? Sod it. Go for it. Do what you want. Be a lovely person. Be kind. But ultimately, sod it. And I've had that bit of grit and determination naturally instilled due to that issue that happened, and also being the oldest child of three, boy, you're born with a little bit of bossiness. Like, so it all like combines. And I think it's just given me that strength to say, do you know what? Let's do this.
Wow, isn't that amazing how I think at first glance at first thought I wouldn't think that 2 was old enough to make that kind of impact. And here you are going through that. First of all, you don't know any better.
Exactly.
Right? You don't have any real reference to say, wait a second, for the past 23 months, I've been seeing things one way and now another way, or I know it probably happened gradually there. So the good news is you don't have to feel sorry for yourself.
Nope.
You don't have to, like I said, doubt doesn't have to come in. You don't have to worry about how are people going to think of me. You just grew up knowing that was part of who you were. That was part of your identity.
Yeah.
That is, wow. And I'm assuming that the treatment was successful. You still do the usual, you have to get it checked every 6 months or something like that.
Get it polished, which is a fun experience.
Polish.
Yeah, you get it. It goes on a big polish machine and it has a little bit of a polish, shine my eye up. And then when you need a new one, so it's probably like every 10, 15 years, it's a wonderful process. And you go in and there are 1,000 eyes. And
yeah, sure.
And the doctor just picks out.
Why am I not? I'm not surprised. Yeah.
So you have 5 different types of eye cut that matches yours. And then they go and send it to an artist, which is all hand painted still. And they create this eye that best matches yours.
Well, and of course, I've known you for a little bit now, only virtually, but I didn't notice. And I would guess most people don't notice. Do they, you think?
Yeah, most people don't. And actually, to be honest, I've always kept it hidden until a few years ago because I just didn't want it to define me. I feel like I'm me and this is how I am. Yep. And it wasn't until that I was contacted by the Retinoblastoma Society, which is the cancer that I had. Okay. And I was receiving their newsletters. I saw them on TV and they were looking for advocates and mentors within this space to say they needed the children to see that it doesn't define you and you can be who you are, who you want to be. And I thought, I'm doing them a disjustice as children who are dealing with this by me closing the door and trying to do one-sided pictures and things like that. I don't want to contribute to that lack of confidence for the younger generation who've gone through what I've gone through. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to embrace this now and actually tell people and explain this has happened and you can still be successful. You can still work in glamorous industries. You can still do podcasts and pictures and all of that. Don't shy away. And that's why I've embraced it much more over the past sort of 3 years.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for trusting me and my audience to share that. That's really powerful. And I think a lot in life, if a lot of us, I think one of the challenges that a lot of us have is we want to impart wisdom on others. It could be our children, it could be our peers at work, whatever. And whenever you have an intellectual discussion about doing that, I find it always comes back to, gosh darn it, it was the damn adversity. Come on. All right, can we whip up a big old pot of adversity then? Because that's how I seem to learn things. And unfortunately, I look back and I think some of the coolest things that have happened to me or my guests or other people I know, it's adversity, right? I spent a lot of time in my 30s talking to people who woke up and I said, what was the wake up call? I'm an alcoholic and I woke up in the attic and I looked in the mirror and I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
That was a wake up call. I'm like, holy crap, man. And that's a whole nother story for another day about wake up calls, which I think are fascinating because a lot of people are scared to admit them. They think that it's this embarrassing thing. Like you said, it's this thing that you need to hide and all that. And the irony is, you're not in the boat by yourself. And oh, by the way, you turned it into a gift. rather than a curse. Come on.
It's a strength.
It's a strength. Yeah,
It
it's a
really
strength.
is.
Hey, let's circle back to your mom. I was asking about people that influenced. I think I heard your mom in there. If you had to pick somebody who had a significant influence on your upbringing, it'd be mom, with all due respect to everybody else.
My mum was great. She was a single parent of 3 children, struggled very hard. It was a very tough upbringing. It really was. And the great thing about my family is we are such a unit. We are the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. We're all together. Even to this day, like my nan, I had my great nan alive. There was like 5 generations of women when I had my daughter. And we're very strong, very connected. I live away from the family, but all my family live 2 roads apart, 2 doors down, very family driven and community feel to how I grew up. So I really was raised by a village.
Yeah.
And that brings so many different elements to your upbringing. And I probably was the one going, I don't want to live in this town. I want to move. I'm going to be a superstar and go and build a business and do all this stuff. And my family were like, off you go then.
Yeah. And
just supported and loved.
That's great. And I know this is going to be rhetorical, but have you had an opportunity to tell them that you appreciate that?
Do you know, not in this way. So actually, it'd be great to take this moment to just say to them, thank you for the support and the constant love. It doesn't matter what you do. I can come back, win, lose, fail. It doesn't matter. They're going to cook me a dinner and sit me down and give me a cuddle. And yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity to say that to them.
For sure. There's a friend of mine who taught me that. He was a $1 million a year customer. I talked to him every other Friday for 20 minutes, mostly about business. One day as we finished the call, he said, Joey G, I appreciate you. And I asked him, did you just say that you appreciate me? This is the guy that's paying us $1 million. And he said, I did. I go, I think it's the first, he goes, I say it to you every time we talk. I said, his name was Seth. I said, I think it's the first time I ever heard it.
Heard it. Yeah.
And since that day, I tell people all the time, if you appreciate someone, let them know. And you watch. If you sincerely believe that, so don't BS somebody. Yes. If you sincerely believe that and you tell them, they can't not smile. They can't. They
Correct.
do, because they know you. And the thing that supports that is back in college, my final, I think it was my final in public speaking class was on why people like each other. Oh. And it was all the different variables around that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and so things like similar looks and interests and all that mattered. Mm-hmm. But the number one variable that directly correlates to someone liking you is the degree to which they know you like them. So if you tell your family, I appreciate your company. If you tell your friends, I love you. If you tell your mom, hey, I appreciate you, that directly correlates to people liking you. So there's actually as long as you're sincere,
yeah,
there's an equation there, right? That
absolutely, and it's the sincerity that is so important. And I'm a huge believer in law of attraction, being the law of gratitude. All of these elements, and saying thank you is one of the most important things in life. And if you do it genuinely, and I always try to pick out exactly why I'm saying thank you to somebody and actually say to them, I thank you because you've helped me with this that I didn't know about. And when you mean it, honestly, it's a great feeling for me to be able to give that thanks. And you're right. You just see them light up.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. It's great. Renee, this has been awesome. Tell my audience how they can reach out to you. Website, LinkedIn, Instagram, those kind of things.
LinkedIn is the best. Renee Rogers, you'll see my tagline, let's not meet by accident. So look out for me on LinkedIn. And my Instagram is _CEO no. So CEO-NO.
Thank you, Renee. The audience is going to love this conversation. I know I enjoyed it. You and I have talked a ton about having way more conversations outside of the podcast. To my audience, this concludes another episode of Magic in the Cloud. Really appreciate you joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.